Hello everyone, welcome to a very special spoilery episode of cEDH Cast. Today we're discussing a new commander and storm combo enabler engine piece combo thing. So it's Bergi. Bergi has only been spelled in French, so I'm just showing you the art real quick. It's beautiful, absolutely stunning. So the front side is Bergi, God of Tales. It's 2 and a red for a legendary god. The 2 in a red is actually kind of important. The front side is good, but I think the back side is what we really care about. And the fact that the front side's cheaper is actually really nice for just like the fact you're putting in these storm decks. The fact that it's like you're gonna flip it off add-ons. The fact it's 3 versus 5. That's actually pretty important to keeping your curve low. So yeah, that's pretty sweet. And then if you ever just need a creature to play for like Holy Week or something, it's not that hard actually to play. So it's pretty sick. But you might not even need to sack Coin Week. So it's a legendary god. Whenever you cast a creature spell, add red to your mana pool. Until the end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end, which is pretty sick with like necropotence and stuff. So that's kind of nice. You may activate both abilities of creatures you control twice per turn instead of once per turn. That line of text is probably never going to be, not never, but it's probably not going to be useful in our format really. So, and it's a 3/3, so it's a fine body. It's a 3 mana 3/3. It's kind of great. Legendary god. So that's cool. It's actually kind of neat in dockside combos. So as a commander, it's really nice with Cloudstone Curio. As a commander, it's also just useful as it kind of like, it's just a good red storm commander. That front side. The back side is what I think is absolutely insane, and that is Harnfell Horn of Abundance. It's a legendary artifact for 4 and a red. It says discard a card, then you exile the top 2 cards of your library, and you may play those cards until the end of turn. So that's kind of insane. Okay, so I'm looking at this through the Corvold lens. I had no discussion with someone on Reddit where they were basically saying this card isn't that good. I think it's because I'm looking through the Corvold lens, right? Like when you play Corvold, you're like storming off, making tons of mana and drawing tons of cards. But a lot of the times, like, you're looking for very specific cards, right? Like, you're looking for reanimation spells, you're looking for a sack out, looking for breach, looking for tutors. That's basically all the deck is. But a lot of times, you might just hit, like, 6 lands in a row. That happens, like, just how luck is. But with this card, like, if you have this out, you just exile these lands, and you just get 2 more hits, which is pretty insane. And then, let's say I hit a Scarf Prospector, right? I just pay a red for the Scarf Prospector, sack it, make a red, draw a card, exile that card, draw 2 more cards. So the deck already is trying to chain draws together, and this is just a card that makes that twice as easy, like literally twice as easy. So it's pretty insane. Additionally, because this is a commander, you can just play this Harnfell Horn of Abundance in the command zone, which is absolutely absurd. I mean, here's a start. You can imagine Jeweled Lotus, Ancient Tomb, crack Jeweled Lotus, tap Ancient Tomb, play Harnfell Horn of Abundance, exile 6 cards from my hand. Discard 6 cards from my hand. Exile the top 12. That's pretty insane, right? So another thing to think about here is discard a card, and so Corvold has this problem where, as a breach deck, it doesn't have this like broken card that just fills the graveyard automatically. The only real way to do that was with Grinding Station and Dockside Extortionist. But otherwise, you're exiling about as many as you're putting into the graveyard. So there's also LED, so that is another card that does it. So it's really those are your 2 options: use Grinding Station and Dockside, or find your LED. And so a lot of times when you're storming off, you don't want to do that thing with the Dockside because you want to be able to do lots of things. When you sack treasures, you might not have mana. So that's one thing to think about. And with LED, it's just 1 card, right? So we tutor forward a lot during our breach turns, or we just tutor up Grinding Station if we already have enough cards in our graveyard. And then sometimes, like, LED does this weird thing where it kind of, like, it just is very, like, card-consuming. So the thing I really like about Harnfell Horn of Abundance is that if you're playing, like, your breach turn, right, and you just play your Harnfell, you can just discard your cards, exile the top however many, play those cards, maybe some of them go to the graveyard, fill up your graveyard even more. So this card really fills up your graveyard super easily. Additionally, we are playing cards like Wheel Misfortune and Wheel Fortune. So the fact that we can, we can discard our hand to Harnfell, exile so many. Let's say it was only like 4 cards because we had 2 cards in hand with the wheel on the stack. We then draw 7, and then we can discard the cards we want to discard. So like let's say we discard 5 or 4 cards. Now we're seeing 8 to 10 more cards off our Wheel of Fortune. So that's pretty insane. And then of course there's just the ad nause scenario where you like ad nause for about a third of your deck. You discard all the cards you drew, and then you exile the rest of your deck. Then you just like make some mana, Thassa's Oracle yourself. In the core world, you just Praetor's Grasp with Thassa's Oracle. But like, it doesn't really matter what you do. So yeah, those are the things that like are going through my mind. I think I mentioned everything I wanted to mention. This card's really, really good. I think, obviously it doesn't play into Draenith Magistrate very well. It obviously doesn't play into Collector very well. But that's the kind of crazy thing, is that you just have this god on the other side that I'll read again. Whenever you cast a spell, you add a red. Until the end of turn, lose this mana steps or Beta's End. So I could definitely see a game where I have a Necro and this in my hand, and I'm just like, all right, well, Necro doesn't draw me cards, so it's not very useful with Harnfell, so I'll just play the Bergi, then the next turn I'll play Necro, and now casting that Final Fortune I find is super, super easy. Like, I don't have to worry about mana at all, and I'll probably have even more mana left over because I waited a turn. So, yeah, these are pretty cool stuff. One thing Coco pointed out that I really think is like a nice way to think about this. A lot of times when you're storming off, you need one of 2 things, and sometimes you need both things, and sometimes that's what Dockside does in Corvold. But you need one of 2 things: you need mana or you need cards. This card converts cards into more cards, and this card converts the mana you're using to cast spells into more mana. So it turns like your dork into a mana filter, right? Like, oh, I have this green mana, I need red mana. Okay, I'll just put my dork, make a red mana. Then you also have the body of the dork, which is super important. And if you whiff, like, now you have like this dork in play that you wouldn't have had. So Bergi's quite strong. I haven't really discussed the commander aspect of it, but I think just having the Harnfell in the command zone is insane. This card's really good in Boros, like, let me tell you. It's a god. Like, this could probably go into Winota. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. It might be a little rough just because of the stack stuff. You don't really want to storm off as much. But at the end of the day, this makes mana. Feather, I know, is one commander people have talked about. So in Feather, you cast a lot of these like cantrips that go back to your hand. And so the fact that you can like use Bergi to play the cantrip, then at the end step you get the cantrip back, and then you replay the cantrip. That's pretty sick. That's kind of interesting. And then the backside's good when Feather's like trying to storm off. It's like, I don't need these cantrips anymore. I'm just gonna start exiling my own discarding my cantrips. Like, I only need 1 red cantrip. So you start, let's really like white cantrips. You only need like 1 white cantrip. Usually you want a lot of red cantrips. So you start, discarding your extra cantrips. Now you hit into more of your storm spells. This allows Feather to have a bit more of a storm game. I know some people have talked about this in the Grixis Nause decks. I think the card quality is just too high. I thought that opinion before the god was revealed. For those who aren't aware, that we've been knowing about the Horn for about 24 hours, and then this morning when I woke up, Bergi, God of Tales, had been spoiled. It was my opinion that the backside on its own was just not good enough in a lot of these like Grixis Storm decks. The card quality is just absolutely insane. I do think it is interesting because those decks actually can draw cards, especially like Blue Farm, better than most decks, and so that makes the Horn even better. But at the same time, I'm just not sure that this card is really what they want. I think a lot of times Horn is a second ad nauseum, sort of like PETA, but only in decks that really are trying to manually storm off because they have engines that are able to consistently do that. However, like if you have a Risk Study in play and you have like 9 cards in hand, you rip this off the top and you play it, like that's game. Like there's just no way to keep up with that. You're gonna discard like the 8 cards you have in hand, and then you're gonna draw 16 cards. Like that's absolutely absurd. How do you lose a game? And you just spend your whole graveyard. Yeah, like the fact that it's not exile all these cards from your hand, the fact that it's discard means that there's so many synergies. Like I know that Angie decks were talking about this. So yeah, it's a very powerful card. Again, the discard's very strong. I mentioned already, but Corvold, we really need a way to feed Breach, and putting a Dockside in the graveyard is never that bad. So yeah, those are the thoughts I have on this card. It's very strong. Let's just look at the art one more time. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. I'm definitely going to be picking up. This is probably the only version of this card that I'm actually going to be picking up. This beautiful alternate frame. So I hope everyone enjoyed this little discussion about Bergi, God of Tales. It's an absolutely disgusting Magic card. So I hope you have a good one. Thanks for watching. See you.